down, down, down. Down, down, down. Igniting the fire within you, exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful, tell everyone to stand and shout loud, shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful, tell everyone to stand and shout loud, shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam in Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. Motherfucker, it's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. How you doing, Diane?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We got some weather issues here in the studio, so I'm gonna ask folks to bear with me if we have to take more breaks than normal in order for me to deal with it. But anyway.
How was your Easter? Did the bunny rabbit come by your house?
No. But you know what, Diane? I gotta tell you. Welcome everybody. Please hit the share button, all that kind of good stuff, right? Oh, and you know what? Since I don't have a YouTube feed coming in, I should be able to go and check out the some of the comments in the comment section today. Part of the reason I can't do it during the show is because it interferes with the YouTube feed. But anyway, I see that we got Vincent Squire. Welcome, man. I don't know if you're calling in today or not, but welcome. We got Felicia Austin Singleton, Mark Duncan, my cousin in Pennsylvania. What's going on? Alphonse Willis, Nancy. We got Brian Powers, my man Brian. What's going on, man? Anyway, so welcome, guys. Please hit the share button. Diane, when I was a kid, my mother was brilliant at Easter.
Really?
Well, my mother was brilliant. She was brilliant at all of the holidays. For a lot of my formative years, I was living in Compton, California. I was born in Newark. Then we moved to Compton, and then my mother sent me back. I think I told that story because I was just such a
you was a hot mess.
I was mischievous, Diane. I was creative. I was curious. I was all those things. But she put me on a plane by myself.
Deuces. Good luck.
Exactly right. Put me on a plane by myself and sent me back somewhere around the age of 7 or 8 years old. Anyway, when I was in California for Christmas, because it had warm weather and everything, right? But we had the fake white tree. Right, and she would color it with blue Christmas lights, right? But for me as a kid, it was amazing, right? And then for Easter, what she would do is take the living room coffee table and make that one big Easter basket for my brothers, my sister, and myself.
Oh, how nice.
So she would clear everything off of the table. She would cover it with the Easter grass, that grass, right? And then she would, she did the whole boiled egg thing and colored the eggs and put them all over the place. And then she put the jelly beans there and the chocolate eggs, and all of us had Easter bunnies that were there. And then, it was spectacular.
Nice.
It was spectacular, man.
That's fun. I said that sounds like fun.
Oh, it was a great time. And I passed some of that down to my kids when they were younger, and then we used to do. I don't remember though. I gotta ask my mother. I don't remember doing Easter egg hunts. I'm sure we did, but I don't remember them. But that was a big part of the tradition with my kids. And you know me, I'm not a church going guy or anything like that. I just kind of enjoyed the whole Easter celebration, the the pomp and circumstance of it. So so I don't have any little ones anymore. We are in the age of COVID-19, so I can't go anywhere. So I just stayed home. I watched a few services on the internet and made dinner, nothing fancy, and
Well, I saw a lot of people with their kids, grandkids. They did pictures out on the lawn with the kids, really cute pictures. My girlfriend had already pre-ordered a mommy-daughter outfit, so they took pictures outside on the lawn. I saw other people set up Easter egg hunts for their kids in the yard. It was cute. I think people made the most of it, as they do with anything else, So I think the kids didn't lose out. I don't think the kids lost out.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know. Anyway.
And in Union Township, they had the Easter Bunny riding around waving at the kids at the houses.
That's got to be scary.
No.
I want you to think about that for a second, Diane. Diane,
the kid standing in the window, and he was in a limo, and he would wave at the kids going through the street.
Diane, do you know that there are a lot of people who have issues with Easter bunnies?
Huh?
There are a lot of people who have issues with Easter bunnies, much like a lot of people have issues with clowns.
Well, no, big cartoon characters. My daughter has a thing. She doesn't like the big cartoon. She doesn't like life-size cartoons. She says it's weird. It does not make sense to her. So she's not for that. No, so I totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? I want to play one more time, just because for technical reasons I told you guys, right? So you're going to get a lot of the Sam Jackson Stay at Home video because I got to do something very important. So I'm going to play it again. Please hit the share button. And the reason, I'm playing it as a filler one, but I'm also playing it because I want to ask the question, which was, the beginning of the show, which is, at this point, is the proposed cure, right? Wait, how did I actually word it? Because I said, is the proposed cure worse than the disease itself? Now, I asked that question, and my uncle, he said, oh, you sound like Trump. See, we got to get out of that, right? So, I could use other language, but I thought that language is correct, right? So we're trying to cure this thing. Right? We're trying to, people talking about flattening the curve, staying at home. In Newark, Mayor Baraka has this, what's it called? Something Monday?
Stay home on Monday, something like that.
Nah,
I don't know what he calls it, but that's what he wants all businesses, essential and non-essential, to close on Mondays.
Right. So we want to ask the question, is the proposed cure, because he's saying that cure, that's a proposed cure to this thing. And the question I want to ask again is the proposed cure worse than the disease? There was a conversation, and I asked you to read, I don't know if you read it, a good friend, Walter Fields, maybe he's watching the show, he can call in. He put something up, an article from the Washington Post that talked about the schools being closed and the problems that it was going to cause. And then he went on to talk about how ill-prepared folks in poor and black neighborhoods in particular are now being shouldered with the burden, right, of taking care of their kids. Go figure that, Diane.
Raspberry calls it Be Still Mondays.
Be Still Mondays. But go figure that, right? Parents are now burdened with taking care of their kids. When they sent their badass kids off to school, for some teacher to deal with them, and they made every excuse as to why their kid had no problem. But now they're home with that badass kid, and they're burdened with them now, right? And so, but the state, and that's a whole nother conversation that we can have, and we should have, right? And some of you parents, right about now, as you're pulling your hair out, you should be calling those teachers, apologizing for every damn thing you said about them. Right? But anyway, I digress.
Quickly.
Right? I know. But the fact of the matter is, and so he put that up, And when he put it up, I had some comments about it saying that, well, you know what? I'll read them when we come back from playing the Sam Jackson clip again, because I got to take care of some really quick stuff. But again, guys, is the proposed cure worse than the disease itself? Right? We'll be right back.
Stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. The is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. Motherfucker, it's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep. The end.
So, Diane, did you have an opportunity to read Walter Field's comments?
Yes,
All right,
I did.
So I'm going to read exactly what Walter said. And Walter, if you're listening, I'd love for you to call in. In fact, I'm going to put the link to the show in the thread, and hopefully that'll persuade him. But he says this. So again, the headline is, and this is out of the Washington Post, millions of public school students will suffer from school closures, education leaders have concluded. And Walter says, this is a major educational crisis. We are going to have a generation of public school children affected due to school closures, and it will have long-term economic consequences. For decades, he says, this is Walter, we have ignored the importance of supporting parents and families. And now households are being asked to be principally responsible for educating their children. No internet access, no computer in the home, lack of study space for many students. Hold on. Caller, please hold. Let me finish reading this. He says, internet access, no computer in the home, lack of study space, and many students, for many students. Please mute your phone. We should not be surprised if tens of thousands of students drop out of the school system. And then my response to Walter was this. I said, decades long lack of focus and preparation has left us high and dry. Black voters have been irresponsible and have played footloose and fancy-free with their vote. As a result, we have incompetent elected officials, some unwilling, and quite frankly, many lacking the acumen to fight for what's in our best interest. And I'm going to read a little further, and you guys should go in there. And so Walter says, this really is not about black elected officials. This is a systemic failure across the board, and urban, suburban, and rural school children are going to be affected. The deficit is in our failure to integrate family supports in our elementary and secondary education systems. Ironically, there's a greater emphasis on supporting parents and families in higher education than there is in K through 12. And he reads a little bit more, but I respond to Walter directly and say, in America, if America has a cold, black people have pneumonia, or in the case of COVID-19, which is killing us at a disproportionate rate. With respect to education, once again, we're at the very bottom of the very bottom, and only policies focused on the real underlying problems will fix it. These policies must be fought for by all politicians, but specifically, I say, black politicians. And then Walter responds to me and says the issue in education is both class and race-based. Poor white children are being affected as well. I'm not disputing that. But if they're being affected, then look at what's going on with us. So I always want to look through our lens. I'm not disputing somebody else's issue. But if we say that that black folks have 1/10 the wealth as white households, that black households have 1/10 the wealth, if we continue to talk about these disparities across racial and class lines, we always look and say that black folks have it worse. And so then Courtney Wicks, my sister, comes in and says, we need more than just policies. We actually need a structural and re-engineering of the entire system. And then my final question to them is, when you say we, who are the we? And when you say re-engineering, how and what tools? And once again, I say the we is, sure, it's the community of folk powered by policy that is dictated by elected officials, specifically those black elected officials that you elect because they're black and you presuppose that they're going to do something for you, but to date they haven't.
Okay, so moving on to the next subject, because we have a caller, Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake, that wants to talk about
is this the Assemblywoman?
Yes, and you going on and on and on. I mean, do you stop?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to complete that thought. That's all.
Know.
And we'll get back to it because I want to get back to it. But right now we'll get back to it.
Right. So Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake is on. She's in the process of putting a bill in place for forbearance for both rent and mortgage. Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning, Diane. Thank you for asking me to come on to talk about this bill.
Okay, so give us the logistics of what you're trying to do and how this is going to affect us in our communities.
Well, first, let me just tell you that I believe that our governor, our lieutenant governor, and our leadership in the legislature, especially Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, is doing a heck of a job. This is something where this is uncharted waters, and it's an unprecedented situation that globally has resulted in shutdown. And we are trying to make sure that we are covering every angle as possible as to make sure that the community is not hurt during this process, although right now everyone is sacrificing something in order to flatten the curve. Now, there were a few banks who agreed to do a mortgage forbearance, and they agreed with the governor that they would carry this through. And also, the governor did an executive order for there to be no evictions and no foreclosures happening statewide during the state of emergency. We have to make sure that we are also going to look at the aftermath of after the state of emergency lifts. There are some landlords who have already communicated with their tenants that because of their lack of payment currently, that they are going to face eviction as soon as the state of emergency lifts.
Right.
And there are also some banks who said, sure, we will do a forbearance, but on the 91st day, it's a 90-day forbearance, which means you're not paying your mortgage for those 90 days, that the funds are due, all 3 months in arrears are due on that 91st day.
Right.
And also, they have they are telling people, well, you'll still receive late notices in the mail. Well, if you're still receiving late notices in the mail, does that mean that your credit is going to be impacted during this time? Housing is the bedrock of our society globally. Particularly speaking in the Black community, we know housing, well, before we speak specifics to the Black community, housing also is still the number one wealth building tool in America. Specifically speaking to the Black community, our housing has been under attack for many years. New Jersey leads the country in foreclosures, and leading New Jersey are the urban areas of New Jersey being foreclosed on the most. Every time a property is foreclosed on, It really is black wealth that is actually fleeting. And that is something that has to be protected at all times. When a house is being foreclosed on, the equity is being lost, extracted out by investors, and then resold back to people that often look like us, but now there's no wealth within the property left. It's usually sold at the top of the market, or depending on how the market goes, it will soon be underwater if it isn't already. So the bill that we're putting up provides a uniformed forbearance. That means that each bank would have to be required to offer the same thing to anyone who requests it. We're asking that the money not be due on the guy's first day, and instead the loan itself is extended, and the money is put on the back end of the loan, and there's no additional interest or fees. So if your loan was expected to be paid off April of 2025, now your loan would be paid off June of 2025, and there would be no additional interest or fees. And we are also asking that there be no credit impact. Now, a lot of people were saying, well, why are they helping out the owners right now? There's nothing for the renters. I do agree with that. I will say that you have to first get the mortgage forbearances before you can assist the renters. Let me tell you why. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is the renters will stop paying rent. The homeowner will slip into foreclosure. The bank will then take the property that's going to eventually have the tenants also be impacted and displaced as well. Right?
Right.
So that's the reason why for mortgages. But what I disagree with is only doing mortgages. We have to do both. Now, the bill also does both, and it speaks to the renters. It's for the renters. You would have to apply with your landlord, and it's not a formal application process, but you just send something in writing asking for the suspension. And then there is a process that you would work out with your landlord for repayment later on down the line. I believe that if you're going to do one, you have to do the other. We have to make sure that all people are not facing losing their homes during this time that is beyond anyone's control. So thank you for having me on. The bill is, there is a voting session today, but the bill is not listed for a vote today. But we're pushing for it to be listed in the future, and I'm grateful to be working with Speaker Coughlin on this initiative, as well as Governor Murphy's office, too. I do not believe that this is the time for throwing, mud, or even not being willing to work across the aisle, even with Republicans. We are in a pandemic. This is a situation that our nation has not seen before since the Spanish flu.
Right. So
over 100 years ago. We have to work everyone needs to be working together for constructive solutions to make sure that we're flattening the curve.
Right.
Stay indoors, wear your mask if you're going outdoors, but also that we're going to be protecting the economic interest, of course, of all individuals. By the way, the bill is not only for residents, it's also for those small businesses. Think about those storefronts in your community that are not open right now because they're not considered essential, but are still being asked to pay rent.
Right.
Are they going to be able to open back up after the state of emergency, or are they currently losing their business right now?
Right. So, Assemblywoman, thank you again for calling in. I hope that you and your family are doing well. The question that I asked at the beginning of the show is are the proposed cures in this age of COVID-19, are the proposed cures, right? Are they will they be more harmful than the disease itself, right? And so I think that one of the things you guys are looking at is post this pandemic and where will we be? If you take Newark, for example, you say that there's 78%, I believe they say, of the residents are renters. As you work on this bill, and I agree with you, you have to, you have to mitigate the damage, the possible damage being done to the homeowner, right? So that it doesn't trickle down and wind up affecting the homeowner and the renter. But with that large percentage of renters in Newark, how do you really see this bill saving what I fear is going to be catastrophic for that community?
Well, that is a good question, but that's the reason why my bill addresses both the homeowners and the renters. You have to do both. So the renters are going, what I'm telling you is this is a mortgage, this is providing uniform structure to the mortgage forbearance process, while also making sure that rent suspension is on the table. And that renters have a tool, in addition to not being evicted during the state of emergency, renters actually have a tool to have their rent suspended during this time. So for the percentage rates in our communities of those who are renters, that they have that additional room to breathe so that rent is not due during 90 days.
Right, but what I'm saying is this. So it goes further than that, right? And this problem is really, really deep. Because outside of that, when you look at the number of people who are filing for unemployment, I mean, these are incredible numbers. When I look at them, even when you go down those 90 days, there are a lot of folks who will not be back at work. You talked about businesses that are going to be closing. A lot of the folks who are in these communities worked for these small businesses in these communities. So they won't be back to work. And at some point down the road, the bill is going to come due. And I'm just trying to figure out, and I appreciate the idea of trying to slow down the bleeding, but the bleeding is going to continue nonetheless. And I don't know, and maybe your bill is not the bill to answer these other questions, but how is it working in conjunction with whatever else may be taking place to shore up these folks when it's over? So now it's over, right? The clock starts ticking. 90 days they have, whatever the time is that the homeowner has. These folks are looking for gainful employment because they got a bill that's now due. They haven't been able to secure work because a lot of these businesses are gonna be done when this is over. I'm just trying to figure out, and then I coupled with that, and I understand the idea of flattening the curve, but in Newark today, the mayor asked that all businesses be closed down. All businesses, and right now I cater to some of these small businesses that are in the Northeast Orange, Irvington area. And some of them crawled to try to open up over the last couple days. I've gotten phone calls from them saying, Eric, I'm going to try to open up. One of my favorite eateries downtown Newark, the Soul Food Chess House, they just announced on Saturday that they were reopening and that they were doing sidewalk deliveries. And now he's asking them to close today. I just don't. I'm concerned. So
Eric, I think that what you're talking about is greater issues, and what I'm absolutely not going to do is.
But I'm asking though, and maybe it was a long-winded, and I apologize. Is these renters are going to at some point have to pay? They're going to have to pay.
So listen, what I'm not going to do is criticize what our leadership is doing right now in each and every single town. Speaking of black and brown issues and flattening the curve, I think that each mayor, and I know that there's an alliance that has formed with the urban mayors in Essex County, each mayor realizes that no one wants to be Louisiana right now, where unfortunately disproportionate numbers of African Americans are dying because of COVID. So you know what? I am not going to criticize what Mayor Barack is doing and what he believes is best for his community, which is unfortunately has an economic impact of having, I forget what it's called, Restful Monday or whatever it is that he is doing. But what this bill that we're working on does is for both renters and for homeowners to have a 90-day period to where this money is not due. And we're also trying to make it so that on the 91st day, all of that back money is not due, providing people with room to breathe. We are hoping that we can get back to business as usual within 90 days. Okay. Now, if we can't, then your leadership, those who have been elected by the people, we are again going to put our heads together, working across the aisles, okay? I honestly, people are working together, okay? Where you have Republicans, Democrats, people who were sworn political enemies are now coming together saying the greater good of the people we must push forward and first.
I agree with that.
Okay? And this is a good thing. This is a good thing. So after, if the pandemic is continuing even after 90 days, or if we're seeing that more fires are arising because of issues getting back to work or reopening the businesses, then we're going to produce legislation to address that.
Okay.
We will produce legislation to address that. But right now, as we stand now, we have renters who are in need of not having to pay rent because they are out of work. Yeah. They're still waiting on their unemployment to come in, which, by the way, unemployment is also, in addition to the percentage, the usual percentage of what unemployment pays for your per your salary or your hourly. Uh-huh. They're adding an additional $600 a month on top of that. Okay, so it is, while people are waiting for all of that to kick in, whether or not you're an owner or a renter, this shouldn't be owners versus renters. Everybody just wants to keep a roof over their head, that they will be able to sustain a roof over their head while also not fearing that after the state of emergency lifts, that roof over their head be taken from them, whether or not it's taken from them from a bank or whether or not it's taken from them from their landlord. No one should fear that their home is going to be taken from them, period. And my bill addresses both of those, and my bill is bringing renters and owners together and saying that both need that respite period.
Well, you know what, Assemblywoman?
Timberlake, thank you for that. I have a question. Yeah. What can the residents do, the people of New Jersey do, to get behind you and the rest of the other people to get this bill on the agenda and voted for at the next session? What needs to be done?
Well, you know what? If people can be in support of the bill and let that be known, you can always contact your local leaders and say, "Hey, we support this bill. Are you in support of it?" That's always something that can be done. I don't think that we're going to experience too much of people not wanting to do because this is the right thing to do. I really take great pride in working with my legislative leadership, Speaker Coughlin, as well as working with the governor's office to get this done. It's really something that has to get done. And I know a lot of people have expressed support. Mayor Baraka has been one of those people to express support behind this bill. My own mayor, Ted R. Green, as well, from East Orange, and so many others are going to be coming out. I spoke with leadership in churches all around the state of New Jersey today, and they were in support. So, this is just something, make it publicly known that you are in support of the bill. You can follow me on social media and get the information from the bill from there. Brittany Timberlake, spelled Britnee. Just got to spell the first name right and you'll get me. And, you can follow on social media to see how the bill is progressing and where we're at and even what it entails.
Absolutely. I put the link inside of the feed so everybody can go to the article and open up the article and see. I think there's a link also right directly to the bill. Okay.
Well,
yes, thank you.
I appreciate, and I'm sure the folks who are listening to the show and the folks who follow you appreciate all the hard work that you are doing down there. And, I do see folks who are working across the island. I think for one of the first times I see homeowners or these apartment building owners realizing that they have a symbiotic relationship with these renters and that they have to work together in order to pull through this. There was an article that came out, an apartment building owner in Montclair did something extraordinary over the weekend, right? And was applauded by the governor for waiving, and I'm not saying that everybody should do this. I mean, if you can, sure. But he waived their rent for a couple of months, I think, understanding, the hardship that a lot of folks are going to be facing. So, keep up the work. Let us know what's going on for sure. And folks, please follow her. And follow the bill and make sure that you are pushing as best you can to make sure that folks are behind this bill and that it passes.
Brittany, one last thing. Could you just...
Hello?
Yeah, can you just give us the... Yeah, can you give us... I'm sorry, can you give us the bill number and the... Oh, wait. Can you give us the bill number and the name again one more time for those that are listening?
Diane, I'm sorry. I'm not. You sounded choppy.
She asked for the bill number. Brittany? Assemblywoman?
Hello?
Yeah, she's asking if you could give the bill number again. Hello? Hello? I don't know which...
Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Assemblywoman?
Can you hear me?
I can. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can. Are you there?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
I can hear you now. I'm sorry. Can you please repeat the question? I don't know what happened. You got real choppy.
Oh, that's okay. She's asking for the bill number again.
That's an easy question. Okay. It was, the bill number is A3948. A3. And it has one word. I want to shout out Ironbound Community Corporation, Newark's own, and the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey, Fair Share Housing, and New Jersey Citizen Action also has a home base in Newark too. These are all advocates who are behind this bill, and I just want to also shout out the leadership of Mayor Raz Baraka, who I believe has also done something in his own house, in his own city for the renters too, and has been, following what he believes are the best actions for his community, even above and beyond what the governor is ordering. And Mayor Green for his support. And again, the reverends and pastors too who are behind this. So, thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Keep us posted.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey, Vincent, you called in?
Hey, good morning, Eric. Good morning, Diane.
You know what, Vincent? Yeah, Diane said that she might have to check out because of a pre-scheduled appointment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate what the councilwoman, Assemblywoman Brittany was saying. Keep in mind, real estate is a part of my wealth network as well. I mean, I did the same thing when they started the first shutdown. I contact all my mortgage companies. I also contact my tenants as well and express them that, yeah, we're going to get through this together. The problem, one of the issues that a lot of tenants are having, and talking to a lot of people, is that, they know that, quote unquote, this thing is coming through. The government's on it, but you have to look at some underlying conditions with landlords as well. Yeah. For a lot of landlords, this is their source of income.
Right.
I mean, this is how they pay their electric and gas and all that other great stuff. So for them, their landlords are in a tight space. Now, of course, have a little bit of a buffer that I can work with, but not all landlords are that way. So, our heart goes out to them as we wait for this bill to get passed and they can get monies. But, as far as the tenants, even though you're not paying the full thing, you could drop off a couple of dollars here and there,
well,
kind of
my and look, I understand what they're trying to do. I understand what the Assemblywoman is working on. I understand the necessity for it. I guess where I was trying to go is that there you have a patient that is bleeding in several places, right? And so while we're focused on that particular wound, there are a lot of other wounds too, and there are a lot of other underlying conditions. Now, granted, this bill isn't intended to resolve all of those things, but if those other things are not attended to, there could be dire consequences nonetheless. And so the question I'm asking is how is it all looking? I saw in a comment, somebody said this won't be over until November, right? So if we were to look that far, so we're now in mid-April, right? So mid-May, June, July, so 90 days is in July, right? And we still have August, September, October, November. We have another 4 months to go if it's not until November. What's going to begin to happen? And so, part of me asking the question again, is the cure going to be more consequential than the disease itself? As we don't, as we're working not to open things, we're working to keep them closed, and we have this Thoughtful Monday or whatever it's called in Newark, and whatever else is going on across the country. There are real consequences to not having a functioning economy, having people at work working, being able to take care of the bills. Now, we're see, and I am, I have a personal outlook on all of this, right? Because it all comes down to the fact that we don't really have a safety net. Right? We don't have a social safety net. And for all of the people who were decrying the idea of having a social safety net, now people are scrambling trying to put together a patchwork quilt.
See, this is the whole thing. We had safety nets in place. But keep in mind, this is a situation where America has been lulled into a false sense of security that, the government is in place and they're going to look at. This administration has the worst leadership performance of any of our presidents, and we're talking about wartime presidents as well. So if you're considering this a war, no, those things aren't there anymore.
But hold on, because I want to be clear about what I'm talking about in terms of social safety nets. Right.
Hold on. Let me get to it.
All right.
We had the social safety net. That's gone.
Well, what social safety net are you referring to?
We had the social safety net in terms of mortgages. Well, let's look at. We had the social safety net in terms of actual preventing this virus from spreading to the United States. This administration killed that. We had the social safety net in terms of landlord, tenant, and mortgages. That died with the last mortgage bubble. We had the social safety net in terms of our schools. Now, because of some unscrupulous municipalities, that money that they give for the schools, and keep in mind, school taxes is separate unto itself with your property taxes. But yet, if you're delinquent on your school taxes, you can be foreclosed just as fast. That's one of the reasons. So those things are on because of greed, or because of, a majority because of greed, let's say, or capitalistic greed.
All right, we got a caller, so go ahead, finish your point so I can take this call.
But now the social safety net now is the individual, in terms of the small individual, which most of your viewers aren't into the multi-million-dollar self-employed business realm. In terms of those small safety nets, they have dissipated. So what we have to do is, of course, follow the trends of the large. But we know that right now this economic package does not service the small businesses. That's the huge issue. Go ahead with your caller.
Go ahead, caller.
Good morning, everyone. It's Kevin Jenkins. How are you?
Good morning.
How's everything? I just want to listen. I wanted to say I had a 9:30 conference call has been pushed to 11. I just wanted to say good morning to everybody. That's all.
Good morning.
How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing well.
I can't hear you.
He said he's doing well.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's everything going? So I heard about Brittany Timberlake's bill. That's a pretty decent bill. I mean, I think anything that can help people is a good thing. I mean,
I'm not denying that it's a good thing. The question, see.
No. I don't want you. Wait a minute. I'm not trying to debate you on it. I just said it was a good bill. No. I just was listening to some of the conversation. I'm not suggesting anything you said that was. Just wait a minute. I wasn't suggesting anything you said was wrong. I just wanted to say it was a bill that I guess at this point might be really necessary. That's all. I wasn't challenging you.
In terms of Brittany's bill, it's a beautiful bill. It's wonderful, and it's definitely needed. The whole issue is getting it passed and getting it passed now. People are hurting now. Now, the cure for it sounds great and it's wonderful, but if it's too late, these people are already going to be in dire straits of foreclosed on. And if they delay it because of politics or bipartisan politics, people will lose their properties. And that's the whole key. Blacks have been, as Eric says, been catching pneumonia on real estate, which is for a lot of people of color. It is their solid and largest investment piece that they will ever have. And if they keep dicking around with this and taking their time with this and waiting for the federal government, Newark's going to be in trouble. In fact, America's going to be in trouble. We're talking about 68% of the people who have houses under $150,000.
The question I'm asking you is this. I guess this is what I'm getting to. And I appreciate the effort, and I want them to push forward with this. But has the horse already left the barn?
Yes, the horse left the barn 3 months ago, brother. This isn't a safety net that they're putting together. This is damage control. And keep in mind, damage control only services. It does not come to a lot of people who happen to be 14% of the nation's population.
And that's what I'm trying to get to. I mean, I want to understand, have a clear understanding of what is the true anticipated outcome. The true anticipated outcome.
Well, the true anticipated outcome is to destroy the economy and put everybody on universal income assistance.
No, that's the true theory. The true anticipated outcome is just as distorted.
Now, I listen to you a lot, right? And I'm not somebody that throws theories around. I want you to listen for a second. All right? Listen for a second. That is the intent, that is the motivation, and that's what they're leading you to. Now, you just pushed out a lot of stuff out of your mouth, and I appreciate that. And I can't recall half of it, but I appreciate you even talking about it. The fact of the matter is, small business will never come back. The fact of the matter is, they can put as much legislation up as they choose to. The banks already received the money, and they're already taking action to make sure that you don't get loans. And guess what? Even those renters that are doing a great job, those landlords, you got to commend those landlords for showing compassion. But at the end of the day, that can only last for so long. So the 60 million jobs that we talked about leaving the marketplace has been pushed up. The 2053 that we talked about, zero income, has been pushed up. These cities right now are going to be completely wiped out. They will not be bailed out by the state or the federal government, because they're not going to do that. So the local economy has been crushed. So all of these jobs, when we talk about the racial wealth gap, well, we have to really look at that all over again, because it's been 10 times more magnified than when we were discussing it for the last 3 years. So at the end of the day,
here's my biggest concern.
Excuse me. I'm trying to have a conversation.
Well, let me finish my thought.
I let you finish your thought, but let me finish my thought.
Clyde Webster Beachman in the thread says, "So true. It is damage control. Damage has been done decades ago." My concern about everything that's going on right now is that folks are reactionary, right? And when we should have been paying attention to the storefront, we weren't. We were engaged in personality politics. We were engaged in thievery, quite frankly. We were engaged in a whole bunch of stuff, misfeasance, malfeasance, and as a result, left primarily the black community susceptible to everything that we see going on right now. And my question is, who's got blood on their hands? Who ought we hold accountable for it, so we can get caught up in the distraction of trying to do the damage control? But I think that as this thing takes place, we need to look at all those people who have been at the helm of this and did not adequately prepare us as a community of people for situation.
Well, listen, I think that you're absolutely. Was that Eric talking?
That's me.
Okay, Eric. I think that you make a very strong point, and you've been talking about this for years. But here's the skinny. Right now, African Americans are promoting by having a big discussion about, why they're not being counted effectively on coronavirus, of black people having coronavirus, and saying that, of course, everybody's pointing to the healthcare disparities. I'm pretty shocked that people are not picking up on the fact that that whole narrative is only a way to make us the face of COVID. And we can go into the COVID discussion. That's a longer discussion. I don't have a lot of time to do that. And I have my deeper understanding of what's going on. But right now, we have now become the face of COVID. And this whole notion that, they need to track it, they need to, find out how many black Americans are dying from it. But I dare say, if we do the math correctly, black Americans have been dying at this rate every year, at the same pace every year, probably even more. So I find it very hilarious that everybody's concerned about that. But what they don't understand is that we have now become the face of it. And what they're going to do with that face is what they do all the time. They're going to come into these communities that are already distressed, come into these communities that are already broken, come into these communities that already have a lack of leadership that understands this deep way. And they're going to do what? They're going to experiment on these people, on our people, on the people that represent those poor communities in the country. And you know what? Our elected leadership is not deep enough to understand that, because they're looking at it at a base level. They're trying to do triage on something that they don't understand.
Well, here's
Brad. Listen, I'm not finished talking.
Well,
okay.
Kevin, I need you to go ahead so that we can have a dialogue.
Go ahead. Well, I'm just saying, but I just started talking for 14.5 seconds.
And now you've been in 3 minutes.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, buddy. You said you was going to say something. Go ahead.
Okay, here is what the coronavirus has done. It hasn't made us we haven't become the face of coronavirus. All this has done is point out things that have been happening in the black community for decades, for centuries. We've always been on the bottom end of medical. We've always been on the bottom end of getting help in terms of resources for property. We have always been at the bottom end of schools. And here's a big thing and one of the things that you talked about earlier, Eric, and I'm going to let someone else talk. The huge issue with the school thing and parents being upset with the schools is because parents haven't been in touch with their children in schools. For the first time, parents are getting a face-to-face, one-on-one, and what it takes to educate their children. And one of the biggest things is that because a lot of these parents haven't been properly educated, they are lost. That's what has been exploiting in terms of medicine in the community and proper health care. We haven't had that for years. So quite the simple fact that we haven't had that for years. So what they're doing is putting a Band-Aid on a laceration.
Call it go.
I just want to say, hey guys, I don't think that the blacks are not being the face of the coronavirus. We're going to end up being the scapegoat of the coronavirus. In other words, when it can't be controlled, when it is ineffective, and when they show no real remedy to the rest of the world, or at least to, let's just be honest, to the white American, we become the scapegoat. See, black folks didn't do, they didn't have, and because of that, we could not control. Right? Because of that, economy does not come back the way you need. Right? We're not the face of it. They're not putting black people's faces. You look at CNN. Like, you hear things that don't do, right? Like, there's not a, what you call it, like, every person that calls in, like, you know, CNN does a little thing where they have people video call in their questions. It's white people, right? But then when they have the doctors come on, they say right now, for some reason, they're going to blame the inner city for this, I guess is what I'm saying, right? They're going to say the communities that black people live in where it's out of control, which is why it's affecting your suburban neighborhood bad.
Well, see, I
find interesting what you just said, but that's what I mean. If I just listen to what you just said, right? That's why I said they're making black Americans the face. Now, I don't agree with your total, you know, synopsis of it, but we're going in the same direction in the conversation I'm having with you. But you're saying that wait a minute, because you said that they're going to blame us for it. And I don't quite understand that, but well, think of it like this, right? When it doesn't get better, as everybody's already said, right? As everybody already said on the show a little earlier, in some way in their statement, that you know, the government is ineffective in controlling the situation, whether it's the economic ramifications, the health ramifications. So what's going to happen is, as it becomes out of control in the black community, right, it's present. That will be how you put the strain anywhere you want to put. You're going to say, okay, New Jersey, the reason we're having such a problem with COVID-19 won't be because of Short Hills. It's going to be because of Lee. It's going to be because of these stars. You understand? And that gives them the okay for white people to say, okay, well, do what you got to do down there in Newark.
Right.
Do what you got to do down there in East Orange. You understand? So that it doesn't continue to affect me in Short Hills and in Madison and in Cheatham. So that's where it's going to be. We're going to be the face of it so that, like you have said, Kevin, the experimentation of it can be put out there onto us. Well, here's
okay. They're not. See, and I agree with you.
Wait, please don't talk over. All right,
listen. Let me just be quiet and let this young man finish saying what he's saying. Because I'm curious to say what he has to say. Go ahead.
Let us not talk over. I agree that that black Americans have become the face of it, only in that the evidence is just too overwhelming, right? Black folks are dying at a disproportionate rate due to the underlying conditions, all of these underlying conditions that have been ignored for decades. And so they have to acknowledge that. In terms of the theory of experimenting, there's no evidence that I have to support that. But what I will say is this, that the attention that's being paid to the black community right now is as superficial as the attention that was paid during the Black Lives Matter movement in 2016 of 2015, or as superficial as the attention that was paid early on in this presidential election when we got the platitudes around reparations. The issues are not going to be addressed by any of these folks. These are real deep-rooted issues, and I think that the majority of folks lack the acumen to really come up with a plan. And some of them...
Eric, I agree with you 100%, Eric. But here's the big thing: we look at placing the blame, and we know the root. The black effect, where 14% of the population are now contracting 70% and dying from 70%, or 70% of the contributors to the disease, is the same thing with the 14% of the population having 70% of the occupation in prison. It's the same thing with Black America. But the whole issue in terms of pointing the blame is, yes, thematically it is there. But here is the big thing where black people have to take accountability. We elect these fools in the office who make these judgments and make these decisions against our lives and against our best interests. We sit up there and elect these people because they come by with a chicken sandwich and then you get their vote. We elect these fools who sit up here and give us plans and says, I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. I'm in great communication with the president, and I'm going to ask him, and you know God darn well he ain't doing it. We elect, it's our fault. It's our fault with our children and education because we don't stay on their behinds and let them know that this is the most important thing that they're ever going to have in their life is education. It's our fault with these politicians because we sit up here and listen to the soundbite. And you're right, Eric. This pandemic has had the black exposure of Black Lives Matter. It's a great news cycle for a day or two, but after that, it's back to business as usual. When we as start supporting candidates who are going to support our best interests is when it changed. When we as black people sit up here and put $20 in a man campaign fund, we're supporting our change. We have to stop the same mindset of letting these white people dictate and these black people with these white people with black faces dictate to us our lives and take an active role in supporting it and making that change. Forget the conspiracy theories. We're past that. We're already in a pandemic. We're already dying.
Well, okay. I appreciate your thoughts, but I'm confused. But let me just say this, Eric. I can't stand the call long, but what I will do is, if possible, on Monday, I'll come on the show and we'll have a bigger conversation about this. But I don't clearly understand what that was about. But what I think is it is a serious moment in history, and I think we I've been spending a lot of time analyzing this data and looking at all this information, and I would like to share it on the show with the viewers and the informed class members because it's way beyond what people think is happening, and this whole notion that when people start to do deep analysis on something that is based in conspiratorial narratives is just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, not always. Sometimes it is, though. Sometimes it is.
Listen,
to make
I'm saying that
like that,
to throw the tag of what I'm not. This is not to say anything wrong about anybody on the phone. I'm just saying to you is that there's a bigger narrative that's on top of this that we need to explore because I believe the residents of the city of New York and other cities in this country need to understand. And they have us focused in one area when we should be focused on this other process that's occurring right in the middle of this COVID. And I don't think a lot of people even understand that process and what they're hearing and what they're seeing at this point. So if you don't mind, I got to get on this call. But on Monday, I would like to have a bigger discussion. I'll talk to you about it over the week so we can prepare and do what we have to do to have a bigger discussion. All right?
Looking forward to it.
I appreciate your time. I love you guys. Y'all be good. Thank you. Okay. Peace. Bye-bye.
So here becomes part of the challenge, right, guys? If we believe that there are conspirators, right, down in Washington who are plotting and planning and so forth, and I agree with you, Vincent, that every election cycle we have an opportunity to kick those conspirators out of office. We have an opportunity to vote for them.
Can I ask you a question?
So if
Eric,
go ahead.
What if it's not the politicians that are the conspirators? See, I get what you're saying when you say let's get these bad electeds out, but I don't believe that it is the politicians that are the conspirators. I believe that they are the subjects of how it the implementers of it.
The vehicles.
Right. You know, they're not the conspirators. I don't think that if that was the case, I don't think it could last this long. Because one thing we have to realize is the conspiracy has gone on for 400 plus years.
Right, but Farrakhan.
Right? This is.
But Farrakhan, we have but for all of these years, right? Well, let's talk about black folks, but in general, people have continued to vote against their interests. When I have a conversation and say to you, if you all someone needs to do is go spend a day in Washington and then look at the number of lobbyists that are down there. So when you ask me who the conspirators are, right? When folks say, well, this is corporate-owned media, and this is corporate-owned this, and this is corporate-owned that. Well, you know what else is corporate-owned, Farrakhan? Our government, right? So the only way to have a non-corporate-owned government is for folks to contribute to their elected officials. And then you don't need the money. So if you want to try to legislate, you want to go to the very people who are getting money from corporations to do the bidding of corporations to change laws that they don't get money from corporations anymore, right? But what we could do is we could intervene as citizens and say, you know what? No, we're going to make contributions to our own candidates, right? Irrespective of that. And we're going to remove those people who have been doing the bidding of corporate America. So when Vincent, I think...
Okay, now, E, to that, well, you're both saying the same thing. Right, but here's what happens. We live in a country that this pandemic is now proving that people can't survive a week without a paycheck, but now you want them to go and help finance to battle against the billion-dollar companies and their contributions to politicians.
No. Here's what I want them to do, Farrakhan.
Can they do that?
Farrakhan, here's what I want people to do, right? I want you to understand what's happening right now and how deep the psychosis is. You have the very same people who are looking for a paycheck. You have the very same people who are looking for some socialism right now. That's what they're looking for, right? They're looking for a whole lot of socialism right now. Out of the other side of their mouths, these are the same people who are parroting a false narrative by the Republican and the Democrat establishment about how evil and destructive socialism was. But they want it. So on one hand, they got their hand out asking how much? How much can the government do for me? How big of a check can the government write for me? What can they do? And then the psychosis has them over here fighting against the very socialism that they have their hand out for. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? That's what's happening right now.
I clearly get you.
Right.
And I think
what needs to happen, but what needs to happen is people need to vote their interests, right? So if you understand, so when we were having a conversation before about the fact that almost half the people here in America, well, again, let's go back. I'm gonna keep going back to 1952, when Martin Luther King said that there's something fundamentally wrong. Something fundamentally wrong when you got 40 million poor people. My question is, for all of the people who celebrated Martin Luther King's birthday, for all the people who got his picture up on the wall, for all those people, do you believe that there was something fundamentally wrong with America?
It is.
Wait a minute.
It is.
Let me finish. So now if there is something fundamentally wrong, that there are all these poor people, homeless people, people with food insecurities, all those things, my question is, what were you doing to shore those people up? What were you doing to make it, if you think that there was something fundamentally wrong with it, because from 1952, where he said it, to 2020, what have you done? What have all of the black we've been talking about this for 4 years on the show. You see, but for now to talk about some conspiracies, some whatever for black people, I'm saying, wait a minute, you want to brush all the responsibility off of you. And you want to affix it to somebody else or to something else that we can't even touch. No, look in the mirror. And understand that, again, you're going to vote against your interests. Call or go.
Hey, good morning, guys. This is a very disturbing conversation on every level. But before I start, let me answer your question about what's the question again? I can't.
Which question?
Your original question is the cure worse than the disease. Is that right?
Is the cure worse than the disease?
So I want to give you an analogy. When you're watching the pharmaceutical, in reference to your question, when you're watching the pharmaceutical commercials about the medicine, while out in front there's a bunch of people smiling, laughing, walking, playing, and in the background of the commercial, because they know they got you distracted, they're telling you all this stuff that can kill you from this medication that they propose is a remedy to your disease. The next time one of those if you think I'm lying, the next time one of those commercials come on, close your eyes and just listen to it. Don't watch the people. Just listen to the commercial. That's the gist of your question. And black people are being affected by this, but this is a global population problem that here in America has been managed poorly in the way that your question is asked. That they're telling you, no, this is a remedy, this pill here, and if we give 3 months here and put it on the back end, no. If people don't have no renters, if people don't have no renters, they can't get no money from nobody. If people got these mortgages die, you won't have nobody to sell the properties to. This is a global population problem. The solution is not in a monetary one. It's not in a vaccine one. It's in a environmental approach to solving this problem, which we failed from the very beginning. So, yeah, go ahead. I'm listening.
And I agree. I quote you for you, Mike. Right? I just want to ask you one thing, because you just made me think about something. Right? Because by saying global, and I'm always saying that, like when people try to say, this is Trump doing something, and I'm like, this happens all over the world. This is not Donald Trump. And so when I say that, now I wonder, and I haven't looked at the numbers or the research, but is it the same in similar communities in the other parts of the world that are being affected in the manner in which the black community is being affected in America? In other words, if 70% of the cases in America are in black America, which they might say is the poor or lower income side of America, is that where it's happening in Italy? So that's where it's happening.
Well, you can't say that because...
hold on. So in the very beginning, to answer your question, in China, they eat besides the meat that they eat generally, I want to say healthy, but they don't have no regulations, and the smoking and the people they have a large population of smokers. These are the people who fell victim and couldn't get under control in the sense that because they had already damaged their respiratory system with the smoking, they were falling victim. We fall into victim the same way. We heavy smokers, our diets are bad, and so but that doesn't excuse the overall population of white people that's having the same problem. You see, but because in our communities, they've cut hospitals, they've cut healthcare, they've cut, and we so depend on that we're going to fall victim in that way. But the global, the thing, this disease, I feel, I'm not a doctor, full disclosure, that the way I'm looking at it is that the virus is done, if not managed right, it will lull us into a position that, we can open things up, and now this is the frightening thing that Assemblywoman Timberlake said to me, get back to normal. Getting back to normal is what put us in this situation. So, we have to be in a forward-thinking situation. We've always been reactionary. But then,
the question is, what is normal? Well, we got another caller. Caller, go.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. It's China McNair. Love you guys.
Good morning, China.
I want to address something.
Yes, ma'am.
And I every medication has a side effect. Tylenol has a side effect. Tylenol is really horrible. It destroys your liver. And we have to really, really pay attention. Because that medication, I had lupus for over 25 years. I take that medicine, and I've been taking it for years. There's people with lupus and other ailments and diseases and had surgeries and high blood pressure and everything and take that medicine. The thing about it is, did anyone ever think to find out how did it affect the people that have been taking the medicine for years? No. They never said anything. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. The only thing I do agree with that orange man right there. There is somebody, two to three people that I know that was affected with it, and I gave them that medicine. And may God forgive me, but I did. But they better now. They better now. Do you understand? It's either the choice you want to take is you want to take the chance of taking the pill or not taking the pill. I take that medicine every day, brother, and there's nothing wrong with me. With the side effects of the medicine, really, to tell you the truth, it's over a period of time. You understand? A period of time, it can affect your heart. It can affect your eyesight. When you get prescribed that medicine, you have to go to an eye doctor and get your eyes checked first. And every so many months, we go and get our eyes checked to make sure that the medicine is not in our eyes. You know, so it's over a period of time. But if you only taking 6 to 10 pills, if you get that, I take 2 pills back to back every day. Each pill is 200 milligrams, so that's 400 milligrams. Okay? And the brand name of that medicine is called Plaquenil. I take 2 pills every day. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm going to tell you the truth. Some days I come in here, when I have to come from that grocery store, I'll be feeling, I don't know if it's just psychological, because we can have psychological things dealing with this. You know, I start coughing. I'll get up, and I'll go take that pill, and I'll take some black seed, and I'm okay. But it's either way. You know, it's also, too, with this virus, how our body can stand to fight off of something. Everybody's body is different. You know? So that's how our body can fight off stuff.
Right.
That's why they do long-term studies on the medication. The medication at hand is basically designed for malaria, but it has had some effects on a small market. They just did a study with 1,000 people. Now, they found out that it has a cure, or it improves the condition short-term for 14% of 1,000 people. So in terms of giving it to the country as a whole, it's inconclusive. It's not reaching the studies enough where they can say that yes, we can do this to fight off the coronavirus. But in terms of inoculating, what we're looking for is this. We're looking for an immediate inoculation with the coronavirus in terms of our economic status as well as our health. And what we have to do is look at, and this is what they do. They've got the long game plan for the large corporations. They've got a short game plan for the less fortunate, or the people making under $75,000 a year, and people below that, you're getting platis, you're getting smoke and mirrors, you're getting, I'm going to stand and I'm going to fight and I'm going to put this bill into action, we're going to do all that, and it's all talk. We have to look at one thing. And Eric, we said this on your show lots of times. Our politicians are not in our best interest. One of the biggest reasons is because we don't support them. We don't come out to their events and then listen to what they're saying. We don't give them $20.
Right.
For their campaign, they can get their money from corporations. So when the rubber meets the road, hold on 10 seconds. When the rubber meets the road, who are these politicians that are going to make legislation in favor for? You, who have done nothing to get them in office, or these big corporations that are giving them millions?
Look, here's the thing, right? This is the thing that concerns me most. When you hear any politician right now say, we want to do, please mute your phone. We hear any politician say, we want to get back to normal. We understand normal is what got us here. What was normal? What was normal? That the black community be susceptible. See, it's not about COVID-19. We've had all these issues that they're talking about now that are impacting us. They've existed. And these politicians sat over all of these things. You don't think that they knew the numbers of black folk who were dying from congenital heart failure, from high blood pressure, from all these different things? And so they want to get back to that normal?
They're not talking to black people. This is what I was saying earlier. Okay, when they say get back to normal, it's for a different community of people. They're not saying, now of course the black politicians are going to say it too. They're only repeating what their bosses are telling them. But when you hear the governors of these states and the president saying get back to normal, they're not talking to you. That's what we gotta forget. We keep forgetting, even on this show, what the situation really is. They're not talking to us. They are talking to the rest of America.
Farrakhan, I understand.
So that's why they want, right. If you understand that, then you understand your question, it misses the beat. They're talking to a different demographic of people.
So firstly, my question is a rhetorical one, right? And the question is meant to have people think about it. So when I go back to the fact that we vote against our interest, right? So if the politician right? If the politician that you're getting ready to vote for tells you that they're trying to prescribe whatever short-term remedy to get you back to normal. Want you to understand what I'm saying to you? I want to prescribe this short-term remedy just to get you back to normal. What was your normal that got you into this situation? See, that's not what you need. You need something radical. You don't want to be, or you shouldn't want to be in that situation.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at. You shouldn't want to be in that situation. And then what I'm saying further is this. None of them possess the acumen to extricate you from that situation. And that's, Farrakhan, why I say that we're in hospice. See? Because they're not... I'm sorry, go ahead. Because they're not trying, they're not working to do that. What they essentially did is they said, hey, listen, this patient has coded, right? They've coded. We need to resuscitate them, right? And then intubate them, and then that's it.
Correct.
We're not trying to
Correct.
cure.
Right, so we want something. That means
What we have to do is this, and the reason I call this our new norm is not the fact of us getting back to where we were. We need to take this opportunity to make ourselves better. The people in office cannot help to make us better because they were part of the system that got us here.
Yes, they oversaw it. Go ahead, China.
I just want to say one thing, and I'm getting off. First and foremost, it's nothing we already know. I'm going to tell you, God is the only one that's going to help us in this part. But I want to ask you guys something. Sweat's tonic water, or seltzer water. You ever drink that?
Sure.
Do anyone ever drink that? Okay. Sweat's tonic grows. In that water, there's a lot of quinine in it. There's an abundant amount of quinine in it. It's a quinine off the market many years ago because they said it was dangerous. But they got an abundant amount in that water. You drink that water, and you take a lot of zinc. You increase your pH. You eat mangoes, take dandelion, elderberry, all the things. You got to increase your pH to build your immune system to fight anything. It's a virus. It's not so much of a bacteria. Do you understand what I'm saying? To boost your body. So if you drink that water, and I've drunk a lot of it, you've been taking a lot of what's in that medicine. Just think about it. When you get a chance, look at the bottle of that water, and you want to see what's in it. Okay? Y'all have a good day.
Thanks.
And I'll keep watching.
All right. So I got a question. So right now, in the middle of all of this, guys, everybody's talking about civil liberties, right? And I wrote these down as I was prepping for the show today. What did I say? Government. I hate when I can't read my own writing. So
you were supposed to be a doctor. That's why.
Yeah. It says civil liberties. Government should here it is. Government should incentivize by so. What they were talking about is the spread of COVID-19, right? And that people should stay home, that people shouldn't go to work. And then we're talking again about those folks, primarily black folks, who work in service industries and other industries where they're required. And so, and beyond that, they don't have leave, sick leave, right? So they got to go to work and run the risk of infecting. So when we're talking about opening up the economy, it's black folk who are going to be out there first trying to get back to work, right? To try to, because they don't have the luxuries. So one of the things that I saw today was they said, well, government should incentivize by paying folks to stay home, and that companies should also intervene and should just pay employees to stay home. Your thoughts about that?
Well, my thought on that is that first thing that popped up in my mind is unions and how feckless they are in a lot of ways. then unions are only as good as the members. Now, so before everybody put them shoes on and they too big or too tight, unions are only as good as their members. And unions have, the companies and the unions have been in bed together. And we elect our union leadership just like we elect our politicians. They popular. They might not know crap, but they popular and they get along good with management, and that's what the same thing in politics is. Oh yeah, they go build the business community, blah blah blah, and we have to separate the two. And the spread again, it goes back to the population. And right now, Americans' population has been so dumbed down that they threw the first $1,200 out there and we accepted it. Everybody should send that $1,200 back. I know people's circumstances are drastic and most people can't, but for what we're being taxed, we should be getting at least $2,000 a month while this thing is going on. For everybody should be getting, whether you make $75,000 below or above, everybody straight up should be getting that $2,000. It would incentivize people to stay home. Shit, at least I got my minimum covered,
right?
And I can stay home. That would stop. That would give you can't. People are going out there because they are not being incentivized to do anything else because they've been dumbed down to a certain point that they are cold outside, even though they don't want to go out there. They still going out there. So it's. Your question is a valid one, and if we incentivize people to stop the spread and stay in, they will stay in. Right now, they thought the numbers would be twice as much as they are because they thought people wouldn't adhere to the warning. So at a greater number, we adhere to the warning, but there's still that segment of the population that is forced out. So we have to incentivize the whole, from a global aspect, everybody to just, take a step back. And to answer your question, I think people have to be incentivized.
So,
my wife said I'm long-winded, so.
See, here's one thing that really burns my britches about that. Why do we have to bribe black people to do what fundamentally is right? Why do we have to give them money to keep their behinds home to stay alive when they know when life and the preservance of their own life or self-preservation should be a priority for them? Why do we have to sit up here and listen to people who have been for years giving us platitude, yet taking food out of our mouths? Why do we have to sit up here and go through and suffer through this virus without waking up towards the future?
Right.
I'm not getting it.
You made it a black problem, and the why are all people are forced out there? It's not just black people, brother. You putting that burden on your shoulder. It's not just black people being it. We got to stop looking at it as a black issue and start looking at this thing as a global problem. There's people still all over the world going out. My friend ain't gonna come to a rest. Hello. I'm sorry, I had my thing on mute. I was talking for a second. Listen, you're right, Mike. It is not a black thing, Vincent. So don't say, why do you have to bribe black people? Okay? I'm not a highly sensitive black person, but stuff like that, I got a problem with, right? It's not a body do like black people. So let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, I don't know if it would be necessary to the initial question to pay everybody, to give everybody that guaranteed income during this point in time, Eric. I always saw it as, well, let's freeze the banking. Right? If we say to the banking industry of America, we're not going to let you fall, and when I say banking, I'm talking everything. I'm talking the banks, I'm talking stock market, I'm talking all. Pause it, freeze it where it stands, right? So that it can't get any worse and that these companies won't fall and their stocks won't fall. Freeze it and say, okay, no debt is being collected so that the government doesn't have to overcompensate for people still needing to survive. Because if there's no debt being collected, Okay, then people could possibly use whatever little savings to go get their groceries or whatever. Or even with that, if the government wanted to subsidize, okay, making sure that everyone can have that, like how North was doing with a ShopRite card, and once a week go with a ShopRite card and buy some groceries or whatever, right? Then do that. I don't know if you have to pay per se and give $2,000 a month or whatever it would be to individuals to hold their bills down, when you could just say to the collectors of the bill, we're going to pause you for a moment. We're not going to let it hurt you. We're just going to pause you, right? So, and then once it resumes, you'll be in the same spot as you were, and it will continue on. Maybe when you reset mortgages and financing, if we're pushing it back, you have to extend the mortgage 3 months. Right, you extend car notes a couple of months because we're going to pause it for 3 months. Right, rent is an interesting issue because to a landlord, you know, how do you pause somebody's rent and then say, well, I'm going to pause the mortgage, but yeah, the mortgage gets extended out, but the lease is only up after a year. Right,
well, did you hear earlier
now, are they going to move without paying that 3 months?
Okay. Now, to answer or to comment or give you more insight on why I said it's a black thing, we're looking at 14% of the population having 70% of the effect of this disease. We're looking at 13% of the population dealing with 70% of the population in prison. We're looking at 13% of the population who are now suffering because of their location and finance can't get adequate food to support their bodies. We're looking at 13% of the population who are facing eviction and foreclosure for this. This ain't an American thing that it's affecting hard, because the studies have already proven that 78% of the people who will suffer the greatest hardship are people of color. It's a black thing.
I agree with that. I agree with that. The statistics bear out. Can't talk over each other.
I'm not going to let them call it a black thing yet. Okay, I'm not, and I say to anyone, that is a hugely dangerous thing to call it a black thing. For one, we have not really, and you said study, we ain't studied, it's only been a month. Okay, so there ain't been no real studies yet. Let's be very clear. Okay, now this thing about the black thing, okay, it's only been the last week and a half, if that they've been talking about the black thing.
No. They've only been releasing it the last week and a half. I've been following it since the virus started. They've only released it the last week and a half, and they only did 2 days of it.
And that's my point. So I'm not going to go on it's a black thing yet. What I want to see is the true numbers, right? Because as we all know, black people that are telling you they're going into the hospital and being told they have something that they don't have because they're not even testing for it. They're just saying, oh, you got it. You got a cough, you got it. You got this, you got it. So I'm not going to put it on us yet.
Let me ask you a question.
Right? Don't do that. See, that's part of the problem. That's when we don't
Vincent,
gay people and drug addicts.
Can I respond to my man? Yeah, the vulnerable is going to suffer.
Yes.
But the question you have to ask yourself, are you willing to fight that battle when you have your own battle to fight to stay alive? I understand this, it might sound insensitive in a way, and shit, I could fall victim just like anybody else. So I'm not taking that out of the equation. Not to say that I'm exempt, but this is going back to biblical times, that people who are fall victim to things, and you going in there rushing to their rescue, and you go down with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and if we keep having this conversation, we're not only gonna go down with them, we're gonna be pushed over there with them. And no, you're in that category by skin color, so you go over there with them too. So we have to be careful about that. And yeah, these especially when people using percentages most of their argument, that's gonna complicate. Hold on, let me finish. That complicates people's mindset when you throw out percentages. You start grouping people together. So be careful. Most people will fall for that percentage deal. But I'm not one of those cats who's gonna stand outside and say, oh, 13%
15% of y'all got this, or 70% of y'all. Don't let that boggle your mind down that, okay, this group of people are getting this thing, and the whole world is being wrapped by.
Well,
I'm not going to let you do
well, let me do this. Let me do this in terms of economics or even social economic reaction. People look at the metrics or the percentage of people and what categories they are to better get a target. In business, you look at the metrics of economics in terms of what people are buying what, so that you can target your market base towards them, giving them more information of how to buy the product. In terms of this virus and disease, you look at the percentage, you look at the metrics in terms of who it's affecting, so that you can get the greatest amount of care there to stamp it out. Now, you can't sit up here and say that you don't look at the numbers, because that's all they talk about is the numbers. And here's the truth on the numbers. The numbers aren't even true. You know why? Because they say that the disease is now flatlining, right? But you look at it, death by COPD, death by heart attack, death by asthma related, all are which they say the COVID virus attacks are not being called COVID virus deaths. So the metrics that they're using is wrong in terms of the numbers of casualties.
But you're calling the numbers.
Well, see, here's the thing. In terms of me being hold on, let me finish. In terms of me being in business,
but we can't say hold up. When I say one at a time, I need you to say okay. That's what I mean. So that way we can get order, right? If you just keep talking over me when I'm trying to create some, decorum, then we wind up with everybody talking over each other. Okay.
Right. So in terms of the numbers, you check the numbers, but you also check what they're checking. You look at it for yourself. You don't just read the headlines, you read the underlying story. That's how you make an accurate decision and judgment on it.
Okay, Mike.
So you gave me a business model for a solution from the brutal side of capitalism, and now that little bit of money you spent on your education is well spent, and that's the approach that we've been conditioned to accept. But these things are. Pandemic is something that don't happen like every other week. So a business model solution is not going to solve this. This is not going to be solved in a sense that 13. We are 13 of the population, and 70% of us have it. It's just going to boggle people's mind, and they're going to be lost in it. But go ahead. I'm going to get off the phone about that.
Just ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the question that I'm asking is this, because we have to have some data that we're looking at, right? If we say it's going to be flawed, then examine why it may be flawed. But we have to start with something. And so when they're looking at the number of people who are dying, and they're saying that there's a disproportionate number of Black people who are dying, and then when they're talking about it being an upper respiratory disease, and they're saying that if you have these underlying conditions, and then attributing a large portion of the Black community to having those underlying conditions, and then disproportionately dying as a result of that, are you saying that those numbers, that we shouldn't be looking at them at all?
We should be looking at those numbers. Like, we should be looking to see that is the reason for the disproportionate deaths because we're not getting the proper care when they are going to seek the medical help. That's really the question, because now as I look at the numbers, right, and as I look at everything that I'm hearing and everything that I'm seeing every day, I'm sitting back and I'm saying, so white guy, Black guy, both have, same lung condition. For some reason, the white guy is surviving. Why? Why is the Black guy dying from it and the white guy is surviving? They all have the same condition. I just had a friend die who's been bedridden from a stroke inside of a nursing home for 3 years. Okay? And they're going to say he died of COVID-19. Not everybody else. in the room. Nobody goes to visit him damn near. I go up and cut his hair every once in a while. He's a customer and a friend, right? Barely none of his family comes. So I want to know who gave it to him. And did they just say, we're going to let him die from him? We don't have to do all the stuff we've been doing to this man for 3 years.
Right. So what I'm saying is this. Even that, and we talked about this last week. We were talking about bias, racial bias in the medical industry, right? And so if we want to consider that to be an underlying condition as well that has not been adequately addressed, that leaves the black population that much more vulnerable, I'm saying, okay, fine, we can have that conversation too. But is anybody here disputing the fact that black folk, for all of these underlying conditions, are left more susceptible to the adverse effects, including death, of COVID-19? Is anybody on this phone call disputing that?
Well, let me just say from the word susceptible, but I understand what you're saying. I agree with you. I don't think the word susceptible is it. I don't think we're more prone to it. Susceptible means like we're more prone. I don't think we're more prone to it. I think it's what they are doing for our
That wasn't my question. Mike, go ahead.
So from an environmental perspective, what we're not considering is a cumulative effect, what they call a cumulative effect. And we live in some of the most congested areas as far as population and close proximity.
Right.
Some of the worst business practices take place in our community where
those are all underlying conditions.
Air quality, right? No, so from a whole perspective, not a percentage perspective, we have as a community going forward, and even the renters thing we talked about. And most of our houses are one-family houses that have been people have made into 3-family apartments.
Right. I'm lumping all of that into underlying conditions.
From a whole environmental perspective,
right.
Yeah, we're going to fall victim because it has an effect.
Right.
And if we don't have the mindset that says, no, going forward mentally, environmentally, we're going to have to look at all of these things.
Right. And so what I'm saying go ahead.
But go ahead.
What I'm saying is this. I'm not disagreeing. I think that we're now talking around each other. I'm lumping all of that into underlying conditions. Whether we talk about environmental racism, whether we talk about the disparity or the lack of treatment because of racial bias in the hospitals, in the medical industry, all of that. I'm saying all of those things are underlying conditions. And so when we're dealing now with how to put Band-Aids on what the outcome is right now, right? So COVID-19 is the thing that exposed all of these underlying conditions, right? And so now they're saying, well, we're not really focused on treating those underlying conditions. What we want to do is we want to put salve on this uncomfortable wound that you have right now. And we want to get back to normal. What I'm saying is this. No, the conversation has to be, how the hell did we get here? How did we get here? And yes, I understand that we need to perform triage, right? But we can't look and say that the triage is the cure. No, it's triage. We need to look and say, how do we cure this thing? Or are the folks who are there interested in curing it? And I contend that they're not, that they want to keep you on hospice. They want to keep you in your current condition. Well, your condition got a little out of control. Remember how I used the frog experiment, right? The way they say if you take a frog and you put it in temperate water and you turn the temperature up slightly, it'll get warmer and warmer, and the frog will boil to death, but won't even know he's boiling to death because how gradually the temperature is rising. Well, that's what's been happening to us, right? But this COVID-19 turned the temperature up really high, right? And so now the frog starts jumping out of the water. And I'm saying that they don't want to turn the water off, move you off of the pilot. They just want to turn it back down so that you are dying at a slower rate again and that you're not complaining. And that's why I'm saying, so these conversations, just like with Black Lives Matter, right? The temperature got turned up in 2015, 2016. So black folks got a little conscious. And they said, well, we need to turn it down, so let's pay a little attention to Black Lives Matter until we didn't have to pay attention again. Then the temperature got turned up again during this whole reparations conversation. And they said, oh, shit, the temperature got turned up. They're jumping ship. What do we do? Well, you got to pay them a little attention, throw some platitudes their way until we could turn it back down and have them start to boil to death again at a slower rate. Now, COVID-19 hit. Boom. They're saying, how do we turn it back down again? And so now they're throwing all of these things out to distract you. But in the meantime, they're really not trying to resolve the issue. And my concern is after November, right, after they get in office, all of the people that they want to get in office, to hell with you again. To hell with you. All of the things that are affecting you now, it's going to be over. To hell with you is what they're all going to say. I'm saying now is the time, guys, while you're feeling the pain and they're coming to you with these so-called remedies. Ask them, how the hell did I get in this situation while you were sitting there in charge? Ask them. Ask them how in their watch, right, you are suffering such food insecurities. Ask them under their watch why you're suffering from house and home insecurities. Ask them under their watch why the racial wealth gap continued to grow. Ask them under their watch how the racial education gap continued to grow. Ask them, because this was all under their watch. Under their watch. And that's why you're in the condition you're in. Don't let them blame anybody else. It's their fault. And they want to be reelected. To do what? So I want to ask you guys another question. We got 9 minutes. Again, under civil liberties and things like that. One of the things that they're saying is a big issue is we got to do more testing. And I agree. We're not going to really know how widespread this is until we are able to do adequate testing and control social distancing. And a lot of the places that have gotten a handle on it to some extent is that they've been able to do adequate testing, but then they've also been able to do what they call contact tracking. But here, because we're focused on civil liberties, there's pushback on contact tracking. How relevant do you think that is?
Very. I think you're dead on with that. We should. Civil liberties, unfortunately, I think have to be put to the side for the greater cause. Now, do you want to regulate how that's done? I'll leave that up to the experts, and they can figure that out. But I do not believe that I should be able to say, I don't want to do something because I don't feel the threat or see the threat, and I don't care, I'm not wearing a mask, or I'm not going to stand 6 feet, or I'm not going to stay in the house if I got a cough. I don't think that any of that is a program like that. I should be able to do that over the health of everybody else, right? Over what can affect everybody else. I don't think that we need to be using that, one man over anything kind of concept. I think that we have to let our certain civil liberties go so that this can be under control. I was literally going to ask you about that because I'm looking at the news right now. Cuomo is on, and they are saying, as they're trying to reopen, and what we need to do with the PPP or PPE, and the things that people need to have. And I'm wondering if people how does anybody feel about once you go outside their house? Maybe it needs to be mandated that mask and gloves is on everybody. That you can't get on a public bus without mask and glove on. You can't get in the subway without mask and glove. Right. I personally feel that at this point. I think that they should have some kind of temperature monitor, since they can do it now without, with the infrared scan. Every time you get it, you walk through the door of a public place, it should be scanning your temperature. Your temperature over 100 can't come in. Go on home.
Okay.
Go to a doctor.
So listen, we got another call, but I do want to get back, if we can, in the next 5 minutes or 6 minutes to that idea of what is government's responsibility, what is our responsibility, what should we be mandated to do. There was a guy who was dragged off the bus in Pennsylvania for not wearing a mask, and now in Philly, and now the Philly police and those folks are now apologizing for that. Should they be? But let's take this caller first. Caller, go.
No, my phone dropped before, but to answer your question, the same thing happened under the crime bill. We gave up so many civil liberties to bolster up the police department that was heavy-handed on us since they came up with that crime bill. You're absolutely right. People would, in order to feel safe, they will feel like they have to give up some civil liberties. And, it shouldn't be a broad conversation. It should be, no, we shouldn't have to give up no civil liberties if you're managing or doing, if governments haven't so corrupted our response to this, we wouldn't have to give up no civil liberties, because there were things in place that should have happened before we got here. But that didn't happen. That's neither here nor there. But now they're talking about you got to give up a civil liberty to feel safe, and
but let me ask you a question, Mike. So to your civil liberty, Mike, right? Should you, as an American citizen, have a right to get on a crowded bus without a mask because you're an American citizen? It is your right.
That's a broad question in the sense that people in their ignorance decided that they would do that. I wouldn't do that. But no, I don't have a right to harm your life. No, if I'm spreading a disease, no, I don't have a right to spread it to you. No. It's like the First Amendment, where no, you don't have a right to scream fire in the theater. That's unacceptable.
Okay, so let's take it a little further then. Yeah. So then I want to take it a little further. So now you have these companies, right? Google, I think it's Google and Facebook are working on an app or something, right, for social distancing. And so now what they want to do is they want to track using your phone. They say that they're not looking at specific information from each phone, but rather the ping of phones on towers to see whether people are complying with social distancing. So now if you take the argument that I don't have a right to endanger somebody else's life, and government says that the way that you don't endanger lives is by social distancing, and if they can visibly see that people are not complying, do you believe, have a right to now implement this strategy through technology to identify, and drones, by the way, too, now to determine whether or not people are keeping or complying with social distancing?
All right, quick answer, because I know we're limited on time, but this technology has already been in place, has been used. I'm a driver. And when Tracy Morgan had the accident with the truck driver, and we can't drive over so many miles a day, but the guy lived 300 miles away from the job and then got in his truck and drove another 300 or 400 miles. That was too many miles in that time. So they tracked him through the use of his cell phone and got to the point where they could track it down. And no, brother, you and Walmart were wrong, because they were able to track the driver in that way. So, but hold on. To your point, technology is a double-edged sword. If we don't use it against people, people will use it against us, and this is where we are. We use social media and technology. It's a social thing. Other people are using it in a way that is going to bolster their political views. So yeah, okay, I understand your point. But it's another conversation for another day. I know we're limited on time. It's called sacrifice, gentlemen. It's called your ass got sacrificed when your fault bearers got here. Sacrifice for your right. Unfortunately, I think you gotta humble yourself and say, you know what? For the great, let me do certain things. I just think this is master. Said the slave master to the slave. I'm not doing it. I'm going to fight for every little right I got to the last dying breath. I'm not doing it. I'm not giving up. I mean, they're going to always go on the larger population of ignorant and say, yeah, I need to feel safe. Take that right. Those are people who never had to fight for a right. Those are people that have never had the right. Fight for a right.
So here's the last
right. I'm not.
You're right. And see, Donald Trump capitalized on the ignorance of people or their ability to not want to look further into what's going on. Didn't you hear him say, I love my illiterate, ignorant group of people?
Right.
Yeah. Uneducated. They're uneducated. I love the uneducated.
We're at 12 o'clock.
Exactly. Because now they become...
We're at 12 o'clock. Here's the last statement that I'm going to make, and I saw this in the feed. And Shakima says, if you give away your freedom for a false sense of security, you won't ever be free. Here's what I want to say. My final comment for today is this: we act as though we have no control over the government, right? We do if we choose to step up and engage in the process of voting folks in. But what we do is we sit back and we allow other people to vote folks in who don't have our best interests at heart. And then when we are confronted at a crossroads with what to do, then we become skeptical about what those people who we were not involved in getting in office are going to do. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So if I'm looking, and I agree with you, Farrakhan, and I agree with you, Mike, and with you, Vincent, that, we all things in moderation. But if I'm looking and saying, you know what, I realize that I got to make some sacrifices here as an American citizen if I am going to be safe, right? That just relying on people who are stupid to not be stupid isn't going to keep me safe. That sometimes you need people who are smarter, right, to step in and say and try to legislate or try to govern stupidity, right? Like you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? You can't yell bomb in a crowded theater. So you might have some stupid person who believes, well, as an American citizen, I should be able to do that. Well, it would create harm to the greater good. So no, you can't do it, and you can be punished for it. So in some cases, we have to be able to, but to make sure every election cycle that we're electing people into office who won't do what we call in the private sector scope creep, right? So they won't take these emergency situations and try to creep in nefarious ways on our civil liberties, but that they're there to protect us. But we've got to do some work. We just can't let other people, because I told you, if you go and look in Washington, you'll see that the elected officials are outnumbered, it may be 5 or 6 to 1, with lobbyists who are there to protect the interests of the corporate American people that we so fear. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Mike, listen, I got to figure out, since we're home, right? Well, are you on the road? Do you still drive? Do you consider to be essential, or are you kind of like, like the rest of us, just kind of in the house? I don't know if I still have him online. Well, I'm gonna try to get Mike to become if he's gonna be home to work out his Skype situation. I'd love to have him visible to you guys.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool, right? So I'm gonna reach out to Mike after the show. But Vincent, thanks a lot. Mike, who do we have?
Eric.
China.
Eric.
Yep.
If I could take 30 seconds.
30 seconds. That's all you got.
Okay. Listen, America, we are now into our new norm. And how we recover from this and how we rebuild upon this depends upon us. Our new norm, are we going to go back to the same business as usual, with us being the same population, getting the same minimum amount of anything? Or are we going to build our new norm where we have some economic freedom, some people who are looking in our best interest, and people who are looking to care for us? That's my big 30 seconds. Thank you all very much, Eric. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you guys for tuning in. See you tomorrow.